Hi guys, welcome to the channel of Love Study Group. Okay, we are reading How to Raise Your Own Salary by Dr. Napoleon Hill. We are on chapter 13, which is called Apply the Golden Rule. Okay, but we did leave the last session on this quote. A rudderless ship and a purposeless man are eventually stranded on a desert sand. Okay, Apply the Golden Rule, chapter 13. Carnegie. We come now to the 13th principle of individual achievement, the Golden Rule applied. The principle which nearly everyone professes to believe, but few people practice, due, I suspect, to the fact that so few people understand the deep underlying philosophy of this principle. Too many people interpret the Golden Rule not to do unto worthy others, but to do others and do them plenty before others do them. Of course, this false interpretation of this great rule of human conduct can bring nothing but negative results. The real benefits of the Golden Rule applied do not come from those in whose favour it is applied, but they accrue to the one applying the rule, in the form of a strengthened conscience, peace of mind, and the other attributes of sound character, the factors which attract the more desirable things of life, including enduring friendships and fortune. To get the most from the Golden Rule, it must be combined with the principle of going the extra mile, wherein consists the applied portion of the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule supplies the right mental attitude, while going the extra mile supplies the action feature of this great rule. A combination of the two gives one the power of attraction, which induces friendly cooperation from others, as well as opportunities for personal accumulation. Hill, I assume from your remarks that there are few benefits to be acquired through a mere belief in the Golden Rule. Carnegie, very few. Passive belief in this rule will accomplish nothing. It is the application of the rule that brings benefits, and they are so numerous and varied that they touch life through almost every human relationship. These are some of the more important of the benefits. A. The Golden Rule applied opens the mind for the guidance of infinite intelligence through faith. B. Develops self-reliance through a better relationship with one's conscience. C. Builds a sound character sufficient to sustain one in times of emergency. Develops a more attractive personality. D. Attracts the friendly cooperation of others in all human relationships. E. Discourages unfriendly opposition from others. F. Gives one peace of mind and freedom from self-established limitations. G. Gives one immunity against the more damaging forms of fear, since the man with a clear conscience seldom fears anything or anyone. H. Enables one to go to prayer with clean hands and a clear heart. I. Attracts favourable opportunities for self-promotion in one's occupation, business or profession. J. Eliminates the desire for something for nothing. K. Makes the rendering of useful service a joy that can be had in no other way. L. Provides one with an influential reputation for honesty and fair dealing, which is the basis of all confidence. M. Serves as a discouragement to the slanderer and a reprimand to the thief. N. Makes one a power for good, by example, wherever he comes into contact with others. O. Discourages all the baser instincts of greed and envy and revenge, and gives wings to the higher instincts of love and fellowship. P. Brings one within easy communicating distance of the Creator, through the medium of an undisturbed mind. Q. Enables one to recognise the joys of accepting the truth that every man is, and by right should be, his brother's keeper. R. Establishes a deeper personal spirituality. These are no mere opinions of mine. They are self-evident truths, the soundness of which is known to every person who lives by the golden rule as a matter of daily habit. Hill, it is apparent from your analysis that the golden rule is the very foundation of all the better qualities of man, that the application of this rule provides one with a powerful immunity against all destructive forces. Carnegie, your definition is good. It does provide immunity against many of the ills which beset the path of mankind, but immunity is negative. It provides also the positive attracting power by which one may acquire whatever he demands of life, from peace of mind and spiritual understanding on down to the material needs of life. Hill, some people claim that they would like to live by the golden rule but find it impossible to do so due to the fact that those who do not live by this rule would take advantage of them. What has been your experience on this point? Carnegie, when a man says he cannot live by the golden rule without suffering damage from others, he shows clearly his lack of understanding of this principle, albeit a common misunderstanding. If you will study carefully the benefits I have enumerated, which one may enjoy from application of the golden rule, you will observe that there are benefits of which no man can be deprived. I think this common misunderstanding of the working principle of the golden rule grows out of the belief that the benefits from applying the rule must come from those who receive the benefits, whereas they may come from entirely different sources. Also, the misunderstanding arises from the false belief that the benefits consist only of material gains. The greatest of all benefits attained through application of the golden rule are those which accrue to those who apply it, in the form of harmony within their own minds, which leads to the development of sound character. There is no asset comparable in value with sound character, and this is something that an individual must build for himself through his thoughts and deeds. Character is of definite, practical value. Hill, is it not true, Mr. Carnegie, that some people do take advantage of the man who lives by the golden rule, viewing this habit as a weakness to be exploited instead of a virtue to be rewarded? Carnegie, some people do this, but the percentage who regard the rule in this manner is so incomparably small that it becomes insignificant by the law of averages. I would estimate that for every person who refuses to respond in kind when dealt with on the golden rule basis, 99 will respond. Thus, by the law of averages, you can see that it pays to overlook the damage that the one may cause. Moreover, the law of compensation enters into the transaction, and by some strange plan of nature with which man is not familiar, even the damage suffered from the short-sighted one is offset by the 99 who do respond in kind. Emerson gave a very clear account of this in his essay on compensation. Hill, but there are so few people who are acquainted with Emerson's essay or the law of compensation, and many of those who are acquainted with it look upon it as a mere preachment by a moralist without any real value in the practical affairs of modern life. Will you therefore give your views as to the practicability of the law of compensation in the modern affairs of business and industry, such as you have experienced? Carnegie, my entire experience in business and all other relationships has forced me to accept the soundness of the law of compensation as an eternal verity from which no man can escape, no matter how smart he may be or how hard he may try to avoid it. There is always some compelling circumstances which raises or lowers a man substantially to where he belongs in life, according to his thoughts and deeds. A man may escape the influence of this law for a time, but viewed over a period of an average lifetime, the law forces everyone, to gravitate to the exact position where he belongs. His own thoughts and deeds establish the space he may occupy and the influence he may wield in his relationships with others. Man may temporarily dodge his responsibilities to his fellow men, but he cannot permanently dodge the consequences of dodging his responsibilities. Hill. Then it is not sound expediency to adopt the policy of applying the golden rule when its application obviously will bring immediate results, immediate returns, while failing or refusing to apply it when obviously to do so will mean temporary disadvantage. Let's reread that part. Hill. Then it is not sound expediency to adopt the policy of applying the golden rule when its application obviously will bring immediate returns, while failing or refusing to apply it when obviously to do so will bring temporary disadvantage. Carnegie. No, that would be suicidal, although many people make the mistake of choosing the circumstances under which they apply the rule. To get the fullest benefit of this rule, one must apply it as a matter of habit in all human relationships. There are no exceptions. Hill. That is a pretty conclusive statement. It gives one no leeway in which to temporise with the golden rule. One must either go the whole way or suffer the results of his neglect. Carnegie. You have the idea. And here let me warn you that everyone is confronted with circumstances which tempt one to neglect the application of the golden rule as a means of temporary expediency. It is fatal to yield to this temptation. Others may not know of the yielding, but one's own conscience knows. If the conscience is overridden, it becomes weak and fails to serve the purpose of guidance for which it was intended. No man should deliberately try to deceive others, and what is more important, he cannot afford under any circumstances to try to deceive his own conscience, since this can serve only the purpose of weakening the source of his guidance. The man who tries to deceive himself is as unwise as the person who would slip poison into his own food. Hill. Obviously you believe, Mr. Carnegie, that a man can apply the golden rule in all his human relationships and still prosper in this age of materialism. Carnegie. I would not state it just that way. I would make the statement stronger by saying that the man who lives by the golden rule, mind you, lives by it as a matter of principle, will be bound to prosper within the limits of his own individual capacity, wherever that may be. The results of application of the rule will accrue automatically and from sources that are often the least expected. Hill. That is a pretty definite statement, Mr. Carnegie. Coming from a man with your broad experience in dealing with all types of people, I have no choice but to accept it as sound. Your own achievements prove that the golden rule can be applied in a material age such as this with profit. I am assuming, of course, that you have always lived by the golden rule, but I should like to have an expression from you as to this. Carnegie. He is a poor teacher indeed, who teaches one thing and practices the opposite. My first understanding of the golden rule was acquired from my mother at an early age before I came to America. My real knowledge of its soundness came from my experience in applying it to the best of my ability and understanding. Hill. Have you ever suffered temporary loss by applying the golden rule? Carnegie. Many times. But I'm glad you said temporary loss, because I cannot truthfully say that, on the whole, I have ever lost anything from living by the golden rule. Such losses, as I have sustained from an occasional circumstance under which the rule was applied without a direct response, have been repaid many times from other circumstances where the response was abundant. Let me give you an example of what I mean. When I first entered the steel manufacturing business, the price of steel, as I have mentioned before, was around $130 per tonne. That price seemed much too high, so I began to look for ways and means of lowering it. At first, I lowered the price below. At first, I lowered the price below the then cost of production, although my competitors complained that I was dealing unfairly with them by the practice. Very soon, the increased business that came as a result of the lowered price enabled me to make still further reductions. I soon discovered that lowered prices meant bigger production, and bigger production meant lower unit costs and made lowered prices possible. I kept up this policy until we finally got steel down to around $20 per tonne. Meanwhile, the lower price of steel led to the use of steel in many new forms, and after a while, my competitors discovered that instead of damaging them, I had actually benefited them by forcing them to lower their prices. Thus, the public benefited, the workers in the steel plants benefited, and the manufacturers of steel benefited from a business policy which, at first, had meant a definite loss to the manufacture of steel. Today, steel is being used for the manufacture of a great variety of articles which could not have been manufactured from it at the old prices. And on the whole, I have never lost anything by forcing the price down. My temporary losses were more than offset by my permanent gains, and I think this fairly will demonstrate how the golden rule works. It may, and oftentimes it does, cause temporary losses, but over a period of time the gains are greater than the losses. Hill, you mean that the golden rule philosophy harmonises in every particular with sound business economy? Carnegie, that's the idea, and if you wish to see how it works out, keep your eye on Henry Ford and watch what happens to his business. He has adopted a policy of giving the public a dependable automobile at the lowest price at which automobiles have been sold. He is putting fine materials and workmanship into his product, and you may depend upon it that the public will reward him with its patronage, no matter how many competitors he may have, and he will prosper beyond the expectations of most of those who are now criticising him. This is a prophecy, but you watch it and see for yourself that it is a sound prophecy. Mr. Ford will be likely to dominate the automobile industry, and he will be sure to do so unless some other far-sighted manufacturer comes into the field and follows his example. Okay, author's notes. This statement by Mr. Carnegie was made in 1909, and every student of this philosophy who is familiar with the astounding Ford achievements will recognise the wisdom with which Mr. Carnegie spoke. Hill, would it not be impractical for certain types of professional men to live by the golden rule, lawyers, for example, whose profession makes it necessary for them to prosecute cases, which makes the application of the golden rule difficult? Carnegie, I could preach you a sermon on this subject, for I have had a great deal of experience with many types of lawyers, but I confine myself to the mention of but one lawyer whose professional policy and its results should be sufficient answer to your question. This lawyer will not accept a case unless he is convinced that he is being retained on the right side. That is, he will not accept a case that is without merit, and I hardly need to tell you that he turns away far more prospective clients than he serves. But I must also tell you that he is busy all the time, and his income, judging from all I know about him, is approximately 10 times that of the average type of lawyer. I pay this lawyer a substantial sum annually for his counsel alone, quite aside from any other service he renders me. A great many of my friends do the same. We employ him because we have confidence in him, and our confidence is based mainly on our knowledge that he will not mislead a client in order to earn a fee, nor will he accept a case that is unjust or unfair to anyone. Hill, I see your point. A lawyer can live by the golden rule and prosper provided he is willing to forego the handling of cases that have no merit. But what about the client who comes with the other sort of case, the type that is unjust? It seems that this sort of case is more prevalent than the other type. Carnegie. In every profession and every business and every occupation, there are ways to make money through unfair practices, and I must confess that there are individuals who are willing to earn money unfairly, but all of them are surrounded by hazards which, sooner or later, dry up the source of income or bring with it evils, if not losses, out of proportion to the gain. It is true that there are many legal cases which have no merit. Some of them are out and out attempts to get something for nothing through fraud and deceit. It is the lawyer's privilege to accept this sort of case if he chooses, but I stand on my original statement that such cases bring with them evils out of proportion to the gain to the lawyer. Money obtained unjustly through the tricks of the legal profession may appear to be as good as any other sort of money, but there is a strange influence which accompanies such money which some people do not wish to be burdened with. Somehow, it has a way of becoming quickly dissipated without serving its greatest worth, just as does money that is stolen by highwaymen and thieves. Have you ever heard of a successful highwayman or thief? I have known of many of them getting away with large sums of money. Most of them are now residing in prison. All natural law is moral. The whole universe frowns upon immoral transactions of whatsoever return they may be. And the man has not yet been born who can successfully run counter to the trend of natural law for more than a brief period. It is my belief that the secret of the great power of the Golden Rule consists in the fact that it is in harmony with moral laws. It represents the position, it represents the positive side of human relationships, therefore, it has moral law back of it. Hill, let us consider the young man or young woman just beginning a career. In what ways may he or she profit by the Golden Rule? Carnegie. The first essential for success in any calling of merit is sound character. The Golden Rule applied develops sound character and a good reputation. You perhaps wish a more concrete example of how young people may profit materially by application of the Golden Rule, so let us combine the principle of the Golden Rule and going the extra mile and see what result we get. Let us go one step further and add the principle of definiteness of a major purpose. We now have a combination which, if persistently and sincerely applied, will be sufficient to give any young person more than an average start in life. Hill. Of course this combination would serve adults as well as youths, would it not? Carnegie. Yes, if a man knows what he wants, makes up his mind to acquire it, forms the habit of going the extra mile in order to get it, and relates himself to other people on the Golden Rule basis, he cannot be ignored by the world. He will attract favourable attention, no matter how humble his beginning may be. Hill. Wouldn't these three principles be a pretty good combination for one to apply while going through high school or college in preparation for a life work? Wouldn't they give one a definite advantage over those who fail to apply these principles? Carnegie. Yes, they would. As I have stated previously, it is one of the weaknesses of most people during their school days that they study for credits and to pass examinations without knowing what they are going to do with their schooling after they acquire it. It is my notion that most purposeless action is wasted, no matter when or where it is performed. The go-getters, as the world calls alert, dynamic, successful people, move with a definite purpose in practically all that they do. They move by a definite motive, a definite plan, and they generally reach their destination because they know where they are going and are determined not to be stopped until they get there. Hill, you believe that those who relate themselves to others on the golden rule basis and make it a habit to go the extra mile will have less opposition from others, do you not? Carnegie, generally speaking, they will have practically no opposition from others. On the contrary, they will have the willing and friendly cooperation of others. That has been the history of those who live by these two rules. Hill, then we may say that these two principles not only serve as a moral guide, but they clear one's path of the usual forms of opposition. Carnegie, that's the story. Now I must call your attention to another benefit one may enjoy by living by these two principles. It consists of the fact that those who live by these principles as a matter of daily habit will profit by contrast with others who neglect to apply the principle. And the next chapter is cooperate, and that's a chapter we will be covering, no quote this time, we will be covering in our next session. Okay guys, until then, take care, much love, bye for now.